This is Watching the Ozarks with Bonnie Bell.
Welcome back, everybody, to Watching the Ozarks. I'm here with Krista Peryer. She's with the Geek Foundation, and we've been talking about all things tech. She's even making me sound intelligent when it comes to technical issues, and that's hard to do. Now, so a lot of women, a lot of minorities are the ones who are taking your classes right now.
Yes.
Was that purposely? I mean, is that who you market to specifically because there are just lower numbers?
Yes, the tech industry is very heavily outweighed with white male demographic right now. So there's a lot of talks going on in bigger companies, even like Microsoft and Google and Tesla and everybody about diversity and inclusion in those buildings because there's just not enough women and there's not enough minority representation of computer programmers or, IT people or anything. And you take something like the robotics field or artificial intelligence, which is something we're talking about. And if there's not enough representation, there's no way to kind of really have diversity in the programs that we're making for the future even. So a lot of these companies are trying to bring in more women and more minorities to get more diverse opinions, more thought processes, and more diverse just representation for the future.
Is it difficult? Let's talk about women first. Is it difficult? Let's say they're already in their 20s, they're out of college. It's not something that they went to school for or graduated from college for, but they need a job and they want a good paying job. Is it hard to get women to kind of jump that chasm and say, I can do IT?
Honestly, the first round of classes that we had 20 women and one guy in our web development class.
Wow.
And we had half women and half men in our IT class. And they all came in and, it was just through recruiting through organizations like the Drew Lewis Foundation and Minorities in Business, Victory Mission, and Single Moms Rock. And all these women were coming in and they're like, so nervous. They're like, I'm so nervous to be here. Like, this sounds really cool, but I don't know what it is. And so I would interview each one of them individually. It'd be like, don't listen to that, all the myths that you've heard, because there's definitely a lot of myths and a lot of the gatekeeper mentality is definitely a thing that existed in tech for a very long time. And we're kind of pushing back on that a little bit more now, because there are, neurological studies that are coming out that saying, girls' brains process math no differently than boys' brains. We're finding out those things now.
That's right.
Yeah, so those myths are really being pushed back on. So you get a lot of women coming in being like, I've heard about STEM and I've heard about, and I'm interested in computers, but
I'm a girl.
I don't really know what I'm doing, and should I be here? And it's like, yes, you should be here. That's my job, is to be like, you matter and you should be here.
So is that changing at all? I hope with the next generations in schools, because
absolutely.
It's no longer boys are supposed to be good in math and girls are supposed to be good in English.
Right. Absolutely. No, I the first panel that I gave ever, the first ever big discussion I gave in front of a room full of people was a Girls in Tech luncheon that GoCaps put on in March of 2019. It was right before COVID shut everything down. And I walked in there thinking okay, this is probably going to be a small turnout, and all this stuff. And I walked into this room at the E Factory where they're holding it, and this room was packed wall to wall with middle school and high school girls. And they had just started it the year before, and that time they had 17 girls there the year before. This year, that year that they did it, when I did the panel, It was 108 girls in that room.
How great is that?
I was so nervous, but then as soon as I saw those girls, I was like, yeah! And I was so excited that I couldn't stop talking. I was just go into robotics, go into game development, go into wearable technologies and all of this stuff. Don't stop. The sky's the limit, So
what is wearable technology?
Wearable technologies is actually stuff used in healthcare, they're 3D printing hearts, now, and, or Google Glasses, that's wearable technology. An Apple Watch, that's wearable technology.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, see, now if I have to tell you, if I were a 15-year-old, 14-year-old, 13-year-old, I think this would be the exciting thing to be investigating.
Yeah, absolutely. With all the things that are constantly coming out, in electronics, the improvements that they're making on even Apple Watches and all that stuff, or smart home technology even. You think about program thermostats and, being able to talk to your Alexas and stuff like that. All of that takes people to learn how to program those things to make that happen. So there's just seriously endless opportunities for people to do really kind of whatever they want in the future of tech.
I would think one of the biggest requirements, along with maybe having the ability to analyze and problem solve, would be imagination.
Yeah. It depends on which field you go into, for sure. If you're making websites and you're designing creative stuff, you're definitely doing that. But yeah, you have to have imagination in the sense just to be able to solve puzzles,
That's
and
right.
kind of be creative. So,
Okay.
And creative think with your team of people.
And you're actually a foundation. So does that mean that and your other part of your life, you actually go out looking for funds?
Yes, we do. We raise funds through different means. So we're always looking for donors and sponsors, to supplement our students and because we provide a lot of different things for our classes too. Our classes are so important, not only because they're teaching education that is vital for these really well-paying jobs, but we offer them for free.
Yes.
And then we also pay for daycare, and then we also pay for the equipment and the books and we provide laptops for students. We also, as part of a holistic program, provide personal counseling resources. So we connect you with a therapist that, I strictly believe that you can't get out of poverty if you can't afford to get out of poverty. So the classes are free for those reasons, and to help people be as successful as possible, we want to take out any barriers that there may be to having you be, as successful as possible in your new job.
This is an amazing organization.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I mean,
I kind of like it.
And I had not heard about it until this year, but you've been around, I think, 2015, you said?
Yeah, October 2015 was when we filed for our 501c3. So we've been a local nonprofit since then, but we were just doing kids classes at Boys and Girls Clubs and libraries and things like that for a lot of years. And then in 2019, we signed up for our first grant through the Collective Impact Grant through the Community Foundation of the Ozarks. And we won it in January of 2020.
Right, of course.
And then COVID shut everything down.
Right.
So we were able to partner with the Drew Lewis Foundation on that and Pitt Technology Group, which has been an incredible supporter and has just helped us so much. And they helped us develop out our IT curriculum so that they could help bring on more diverse people to work in their shop. And they've actually hired on 4 of our students since then as interns to work for them. So they are paid full-time positions. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just explain real quickly the 2 curriculums. There's the IT curriculum and then the
web development.
The web development.
Yes.
So the difference.
So the IT class is an A+ certification program. It's called CompTIA A+ certification program. You get a certification if you pass the test, and we pay for 2 tries at those exams as well, which is $1,000 worth of tests.
Wow.
So we do try to take out any barriers that there are for taking our classes and being successful. So that would provide the certification program and the skill sets that you need to go into help desk positions, anything like that, working in an IT company. So something like Pitt Technology Group or JMark, those fields where you're working. It can be kind of confusing because the IT and tech industries are separate things. So you have web development and software engineering and robotics or cloud computing in those areas in the software side. And then IT is more your hardware side. Okay. But then it gets even more confusing because they also call that industry as a bigger picture IT.
Exactly.
So it's but that's actually 2 separate fields too, right? So it can be very confusing. But that's our job is to break down that so you can understand exactly where you're going into and what field makes the most sense for you. Because there's some people that come in and, maybe attention to detail is not their biggest forte, or maybe they wouldn't like, just sitting in front of a computer and typing in a bunch of characters all day long. Then maybe IT might be better for them. Are you more of a hands-on person? Do you like, working with people and talking to people a lot, and helping people out, helping people solve problems? You might be great at IT. If you like working with a team of people to build and design something, you might be better at web development, So
let's see. Let me get this straight. Your foundation teaches classes. Mm-hmm. You kind of counsel students, and you do career counseling.
Yes, we help with career counseling. Uh-huh.
You also have to be out there raising funds, obviously, for the foundation.
Yes, we do.
So you're almost all things to all people here. Are you tired a lot?
So I get that joke a lot because I definitely do stuff, a lot of things, and people are like, when do you ever sleep?
Exactly. That was my next question.
Never. I'm a robot. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. You're part of that robotics
Yeah,
tech. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how
It's all part of it.
Krista became who she was.
I'm just very passionate about what I do. I'm very, very passionate about it, and I love watching the success of the students. You know, like we've had 4 classes graduate at this point. 4 of our students have gone on to be interns in full-time positions at Pitt Technology Group. Over 60% of our first class got jobs within 2 months of graduating. One of them actually got a job before they even graduated working for Nike, you know? So we've had a lot of success, but like, it's even more empowering when you see like the first class of IT, for example. Like IT tends to be the less of the two that more women would go into because it's a lot more like hands-on and, you know, just taking apart computers and stuff. But this is a great example. The first class was half women and half men. The second class was mostly men. This class is all women and 2 guys.
Okay.
So it's been incredible to watch these students go through, graduate, and then watch them go into jobs and see how it's changing their lives and hear their success stories. And I mean, so just, I love it. This is my life.
And even though, like we said earlier, we're not, you know, mini Silicon Valley or, you know, the central Silicon Valley. There are plenty of jobs here, so they don't have to move or leave Springfield.
Well, the greatest thing about that, too, is that you can work locally, but like Silicon Valley, there's new studies even coming out right now saying they're looking for more remote jobs. So they're looking for more developers and things like that in the Midwest. And they're also they're reaching out outside of Silicon Valley. So there's job opportunities and partnerships for us available with companies in Silicon Valley. I mean, there's endless opportunities all across the entire world for jobs.
Strangely enough, is that one of those thank you COVID things? I mean, I can't think of too many reasons to be thankful for COVID,
Right.
But the whole remote working industry.
So I've been studying the industry since 2009. There's always been remote opportunities all throughout the entire world. I mean, almost every company is a tech company at this point because they have e-commerce, they've got websites, they've got, you know, whatever. And I'll just randomly, just for fun, just Google companies and then go and look at their job sites. And almost every time they're always hiring an IT person, they're always hiring developers. So there's never been a lack of remote jobs anyway, but yes, COVID has definitely made even more need for that, you know, so it's opened even more doors for sure.
Wow.
But so it's excellent because it's not just workforce development, it's economic development too, because then those really well-paying jobs, even remotely, all that money comes back into our economy. But it's also personal development because there's endless opportunities to keep learning and move yourself up, you know, on the pay scale as you learn more. I like to use a guy as an example a lot. There's a guy that posted his salary on Twitter. He had just retired. He was younger than me and posted his salary. He started out 10 years prior working as a web developer, making $50,000 a year. Then he taught himself more and more and then went into cloud computing. Then through that 10 years, wound up getting a job at Amazon Web Services as a cloud computer and retired making $500,000 a year.
Okay, and on that note, we're out of time. I hate to say that, but there's something good to end on. For people who want more information about the Geek Foundation, where do they find you?
You can find us on the web at thegeekfoundation.org, and we are also located at the Fairbanks Community Hub at 1126 North Broadway Avenue.
Krista, thanks so much. This is fascinating.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me on. This was a blast.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, everybody, this is it for this edition of Watching the Ozarks. Make sure you do that. Just keep watching the Ozarks.
This has been Watching the Ozarks with Bonnie Bell. If you have topics or story ideas, please contact Bonnie at bbell@radiospringfield.com. This has been a presentation of KWTO News, another free community service of Zimmer Communications. This is Watching the Ozarks with Bonnie Bell.
Hello, everybody. I am Bonnie Bell, and this is Watching the Ozarks. And joining me in studio today is Krista Peryer from the Geek Foundation. And before I go any further, I have to say I love the name.
Oh, thank you.
Where did that come from?
Well, I'm a geek, so that kind of was the idea. Is like, what can we do to represent geeks like myself who are interested in getting into this field?
What makes you a geek?
Well, lots of different things for me. I grew up as a video game player, a comic book lover, and those kinds of things. Really interested in technology, really interested in space, even. So I think those kind of things kind of classify you as
That
geek.
makes you a member of the geekdom.
The geek, yeah.
Okay.
Geek Foundation.
There you go. So the how old is the Geek Foundation?
We started up actually in October of 2015. So
Wow.
6 years this year. Mm-hmm.
And what was the impetus?
So we started it because we were trying to help more women and minorities get into the tech industry and IT. This is a field that has a lot of spectacular jobs available, really well-paying jobs available. And being kind of a geek girl myself, which, was interested in getting into tech and was having a hard time figuring out how to get the education. So decided to start up a school doing it.
And this is actually, I know it's the Geek Foundation, but there's actually a school.
Yeah, we actually have classes on site at the Fairbanks, actually, is where we're based out of, the Fairbanks Community Hub.
And so how many, mostly all women and minorities? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah. So we recruit women and minorities through partnered nonprofit organizations a lot of the times. So we started our first class last year for adults, but prior to that, we did kids classes.
Oh.
So we do education for kids and for adults. So for kids, it's to get them interested in tech so that they want to go into tech careers as they age out of school.
Sure.
And then for adults, it's to create workforce development programs.
Of course, yeah, because that's all we hear about now. We hear a lot about STEM, right?
Yes,
Everybody's
STEM.
talking about
Yep. And IT.
Yes,
Mhm.
STEM and IT courses. So are they the all important?
Yep.
Well, okay. So when you say though that you teach these courses, are we talking basics?
Yeah, so anybody even who doesn't have an understanding of what they're coming into could start these classes. Like, even if you just have a little bit of knowledge of, a computer or how to use a computer, you could take these courses. So they're for beginners, yes, essentially. And the idea is to give you the skill sets you need to get into entry-level jobs in the IT industry, but also to help you get that foundation, which is where the Geek Foundation comes from, the foundation that you need to develop yourself through all of the programs that you could, through all the languages and things that you could learn really to move up even through IT and through tech. So our classes are foundational in the way that you can come in and learn web development, but you could teach yourself through time different types of programming languages and move up into maybe like cloud computing, or other areas, or robotics, or artificial intelligence even, which is something that's, becoming talked about, or quantum computing, things like that. So just starting with the foundational programs, you have endless opportunities to work in tech.
Oh my gosh, you have just said 4 words or four compound words, I guess, that absolutely went right over my head. Did you see my eyes start to get bigger as you start talking about the areas they're going to go into?
That's probably my biggest hurdle, is getting people to understand like the value of tech, right? And the value of the IT industry, is because, yes, a lot of people are like that. They're like, well, I know I've heard those words, but I don't know what those are. So it's my job to kind of break down what those fields are and get people interested in those fields instead of being afraid of them. Because a lot of people hear robotics and they think, oh, people are going to lose jobs, or
true,
things like
right.
that. But if we can teach you how to program those robots instead, there's even better paying jobs available for that.
Okay, so I'm about to age myself, and I'll age probably our producer Arlen, because when I hear robotics, I think Lost in Space.
Yeah.
The robot
I love that
from Lost
show.
in Space.
It was great.
Wasn't that a great show?
It was a great show.
That's how old I am. That to me, that is robotics.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's not what you mean when you talk about robotics.
Oh, robotics, are very different now, for sure. Yeah. There's robots that can do all kinds of different stuff, like from just manufacturing and in industrial to even, the checkout systems at Walmart are considered robotics or.
Okay, so I can turn on a computer. I can pretty much manage my way through, the word processing type of thing.
Mhm.
I can even do maybe a few fancy little things, on my Mac.
Hmm.
But you're talking way above that.
Yeah, I mean, yes. So, like the websites you visit are
Yes.
programmed websites with
Right.
a computer programming language. Somebody
Right.
designs those and makes those look pretty through a string of characters of alphabet and numeric
Yes.
responses. So, it's yes, it's a fancier version of it, but it's really just memorization and kind of it's. I equate learning a computer programming language to learning a foreign language. You're just
Oh.
learning a foreign language that you just put into a string of characters in a computer, essentially, is really all you're doing. So that's why I always had this mentality of like, well, people can do it as long as you can memorize the characters, do some problem solving, and you can solve puzzles and things like that. You can code a website. Or if you can problem solve and think, about solving puzzles, you can do IT too, because IT is really just, they make that joke about IT a lot. Have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again?
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Which I do all the time.
Yes, I think most of us do. Anytime we run into an issue, it's like, oh, this isn't working. Well, let's just shut it down and try to turn it back off. Most of that is just problem solving. It's just figuring out what the problem is, So if you can problem solve, you can typically start out in a field of tech because it's really just problem solving and memorization.
Which I'm going to guess when you say it's like learning a foreign language, this is probably why computers and programming are so easy for younger folks, because they always say, if you start teaching a child a foreign language when they're like 5 or 6 or 7, it's much easier for them to pick it up.
That's true, but they also are showing through studies of the brain and neurological studies and things like that people are able to do memorization and learn those types of skills, and you can keep your brain pretty active through later ages as well.
So somebody my age could actually learn how to program.
Yeah, if you put your mind to it and you have devotion to it, and it's a lot of work. These are like boot camp style classes. They're like 6 months long. It's a lot of information, but if you're capable of learning and you're hardworking and you're willing to set your mind to it, sure, there's no reason why not.
So I'm curious, what ages do you have show up in these classes?
We have had some, we had a couple like mid-50s women join the class. We've had some older, actually our teacher's dad joined our last class.
Oh, how neat.
He took the class and graduated from it. We've had a lot of our age range for our adult classes is probably 20s to 40s, I would say. The next classes that we're going to be starting up will be even working with a little bit younger demographic, like high school seniors and age groups like that. So,
okay.
And then our kids classes, of course, we work typically most of the time we work, all the way up through seniors in high school, but like little kids, it's like more like drag and drop programs where they can just, take a picture and drag it over, and they're kind of learning the fundamentals of programming through that. But it's not like actual typing in the string of characters, that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of ways for people to learn tech, really.
So your courses are not so much teaching how to turn it on and the basics, but your courses are more advanced?
No, the IT class does start that way.
Oh,
so
does
you
it?
are just learning the fundamentals of a computer. So you it's basically kind of like I kind of explain it to our students like it's like lab,
Okay.
in biology, but you're dissecting a computer instead of a frog, you
Oh,
know. So you kind
okay.
of are taking apart a computer, you're learning all the components and all the like parts and stuff of a computer, but then you get further into it and you learn about how those parts work together, and then how the internet works with it, and how cabling works with it, and you just keep going until you've learned all the fundamentals of IT and how IT works. So you could do help desk positions or
Now,
cabling.
were you one of those kids that like tore your computer apart and put it back together again, and so that's how you kind of got into this?
So no, that's actually what's pretty funny about my story is, yes, I was the kid in my family who I was the oldest. My dad would always like, oh, here, put the VCR and the TV and all that stuff together. I was an electronics kid. But there's my story. I kind of got into this field because I wanted to get into that. I wanted to learn about taking things apart and doing all of that. And I had a lot of friends and people I knew who worked in the tech industry, and that was back in 2009. And it was all males that I knew, all white males that I knew that worked in it. And so I kept asking around, like, how do I get into this industry? How do I learn this? And I kept hearing, well, if you haven't been doing it your whole life, or if you haven't been taking stuff apart your whole life, or
this isn't going to fit you. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, well, that sounds silly. So I kind of just set on a course of like, how can I make this happen for the entire population of people who get told that, like me, So here I am.
So, I mean, obviously you had to, so what did you do? Did you just find a class, find some place and go sit in with all these men in there?
Nope. So I actually started teaching myself online how to code, and I learned how to develop websites and how to do graphic design and stuff. I was all freelance and self-taught. And from there, I started studying the tech industry locally and finding out that we had all these companies like O'Reilly and Jack Henry and Expedia and Bass Pro and Cerner that were actually like huge tech companies, but people just don't think of them locally as tech companies. So I started asking around and like changed the question from like, how do I get into this field to like, would you hire people without a traditional 4-year degree? And companies are so desperate for IT and tech employees that they're like, yes, if you could send us people who can just pass our technical exams, we would take people without a 4-year degree. And so that's where I kind of set out with the mission to start up a school that could teach education that people needed for it.
Now, when you start listing off all of these companies, I really don't think of them as tech companies.
No, nobody does here. Yeah, they think O'Reilly Automotive, Jack
Henry
Banking. But so most of them actually have enormous tech departments.
I guess that would be true. You would have to have a large tech department to probably back up all of these companies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about the fact that they have like e-commerce, mobile apps, their website, their IT, the security that needs to go into that, all of that, like they have such huge tech departments because they have to hire tons and tons of people. It's like large teams of people that have to work together to make all of those parts work together.
And we should point out that, and we'll talk more about this in the next segment, but these are good paying jobs.
Very, very well paying jobs, especially for Springfield too. I mean, entry level position at Jack Henry as a computer programmer can be somewhere from $55,000 to $75,000 a year.
Yeah, maybe we may have gone into I might have gone into the wrong field. And right now with the workforce problem, I can only imagine they must be hurting like everybody else.
Oh, the strain has gotten incredibly bad, even through COVID, especially. I mean, they were saying, just since 2000 or just last year before COVID happened, they were saying over 250,000 software jobs, developer jobs would be added in 10 years.
Right.
So that was before COVID happened even. So I'm sure that the strain has only skyrocketed since
gotten worse.
COVID happened. Yeah.
We're going to continue talking about this and so much more with Krista. So you stay with us. We'll be back right after this.